Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the national anthem performed by Alexis Wilkins.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. God bless y'all. God bless America.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Independent Women's Chairman Heather Higgins presenting the Barbara K. Olson Women of Valor Award.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. All right, this is Mom talking. It's time to sit down. I want to tell you what a pleasure it is to have you here and what a pleasure it is to look out at this beautiful room. Amber, I think you're over there at table 19 somewhere. It's gorgeous again. Thank you so much. You come to IW galas and they always just look better. And if you have to go to a lot of policy dinners, as I think many of us do, you know that it's going to be a special evening. Indeed, last night when I was in New York, I mentioned to a donor of ours that we had our gala this evening, and he said, I love your group. There are so many groups that just talk, but you women actually do something. So I want to say, as the women's group that actually likes men, that we know that there are many men who do actually do something, not least our occupant of the White House, who is a doer par excellence, and also many of our guests who are here this evening. It's so appreciated that you are doers, not just talkers, which particularly in Washington is a really refreshing change. I want to say, indeed, looking around this room, that it's clear that we've assembled an extraordinary group of people, male and female, who value being effective and having impact. You are some of the brightest, most accomplished, and most generous individuals anywhere, and I must say, a very handsome and impressive group, and you clean up very well. I'd like to begin by recognizing just a few of the outstanding individuals and organizations who help make tonight possible. First, a huge thank you to our diamond level sponsor, J. & J. We are especially honored to welcome J&J CEO Joaquin Duato, along with Jane Addams this evening. Thank you both for your tremendous support. A special thank you as well to our platinum sponsors, the Diana Davis Spencer Foundation, the Mike Rowe Foundation, and the Dick and Mary Beth Weiss, who are not yet a foundation, they're just with us. And I also want to acknowledge Mercury Public Affairs as well for their generous support. The wonderful news for us is that this year's gala has already been a record-breaking success of nearly $1 million cleared after the costs of the dinner. And I want to say, if any of you want to feel your angel wings growing just a little bit more this evening, by putting us over that $1 million number, go find Amber at table 19, and we will not say no. We are deeply grateful to every sponsor and supporter here tonight. While I'd love to name each of you, that would take us through dessert, so I strongly recommend that you look at your programs. We also have some notable and much appreciated administration officials in attendance tonight that I'd like to highlight, including Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Attorney General Todd Blanche, Secretary of the Interior Todd Burgum, Secretary of Energy and past donor to IW, I knew him when, Chris Wright, FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, and FBI Director Kash Patel, whom I think you should know we honored in 2025 as our Gentleman of Distinction. And funny enough, there's a second such honoree in the crowd with us tonight, Mike Rowe, who was honored in 2018. So happy to have you here with us, Mike. I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, the recipient of our 2022 Resilience Award for her work in standing up for objective truth and female athletes, couldn't be with us tonight. So instead, she spoke at our policy summit this afternoon. She was outstanding. And her principal deputy director, Aaron Lucas, joins us this evening. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, this is Washington and we believe in full disclosure, Aaron had very little choice in the matter. This year he's not posted abroad, the kids are not so small, and he's married to our president, Carrie Lucas. No staying home for you, Aaron. When people ask me why I'm chairman of Independent Women and have invested so much in this organization in time and treasure, I tell them it's because I have 3 children whom I have only rarely been inclined to send back. And so I want to leave them the best future for this great country we call home, a place that has been better than any other for liberty and human flourishing, is founded on respect for the Constitution, individuals, and God-given human rights, and promotes an ethic of responsibility rather than entitlement and victimhood. I also tell them I care about good policy as assessed by results, not just good intentions, and that Independent Women is a unique and necessary piece of saving the country we all love. We see the left tell people every day that to like themselves, they have to support ideas and policies they know are wrong and against their own interests. That's really twisted if you think about it. And we know that the left works hard at selling good-sounding ideas, ideas that have had and will have terrible consequences if and when implemented. I'm saying this as a New Yorker, hoping some of this gets back to the mayor. At Independent Women, we unmask bad ideas that sound good. And when we see problems and where we see things being done badly, we provide better solutions. To the men in the room, I want to ask you, when you've told your wife or your girlfriend what to think, how well did that go down? not so well. Yet that approach is the approach that nearly the entire conservative movement takes, telling people what to think, and talking therefore only to the people who already agree with them. On the back of the $2 bill, if you ever get a chance to see a $2 bill, is John Trumbull's 1818 painting, and it's not of the July 4th signing of the Declaration of Independence, which is what many people assume. It's actually June 28th, the presentation of the draft of the Declaration of the Independence to Congress. They hadn't written it for the minority of people who already agreed with them. They did their work because they understood the importance of persuading others of the validity and importance of their cause. That's what we at Independent Women do. We are dedicated to speaking beyond the base and encouraging more people to join our cause. We approach issues differently so that more people, especially women, but not exclusively women, will give us a hearing. We listen and identify policy ideas and stories backed by data that will speak to people's concerns while being consistent with our principles and good real-world results. We know that it is not about us, but about getting successful policies implemented through smart strategies. I'm describing our ethic and approach that underpin Independent Women, and that's also a really good description of the approach of the incredible woman whom we celebrate tonight. Susie Wiles changed the course of history. She did it quietly, behind the scenes, solving problems and creating a bigger coalition than anyone ever thought possible. For 4 decades, Susie has been a political strategist, building winning campaigns and movements. Today, she is using these skills as the first female chief of staff to occupy the West Wing, overseeing White House operations, personnel, and policy operations. She not only did she run the campaign brilliantly, she is hands down, in my opinion, the best chief of staff of my lifetime. Part of why is she is all about getting stuff done, quietly and effectively, with impact, just as we at Independent Women do. And perhaps part of what makes her effective is that she is also known as a dedicated mother and mentor to the people around her. Her staff love her and appreciate how considerate she is of them all the time. She is tough, but the kind of tough that is about getting the best out of people, which is exactly the kind of woman that this award was meant to recognize. The Barbara K. Olson Women of Valor Award is named after Barbara K. Olson, who died on September 11th in the plane that crashed into the Pentagon. Barbara was a co-founder of Independent Women's Forum and was herself a tireless champion of limited government and individual liberty. Barbara was the quintessential happy warrior, known as much for her eviscerating arguments as for her style and quick smile. Independent Women's Forum has bestowed this award on some of the most influential female leaders in the country, including Miranda Devine, Secretary Betsy DeVos, Kim Strassel, Kellyanne Conway, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and Condoleezza Rice, among others. Tonight's awardee is wholly deserving of joining these impressive ranks. Susie Wiles, please join me on stage to accept the Barbara K. Olson Women of Valor Award. So I just want to say before we get started with our conversation, Susie, that there was one person who couldn't be here tonight, and he likes us, and he loves you, and he wanted to send a message, so I'd like you to take a look at the video monitors, and we have a little message for you before we get started.
Hello to Heather Higgins and everyone gathered at the Independent Women's Forum Annual Awards Gala. It's a great event. Thrilled to join you in congratulating my great Chief of Staff. She is amazing, Susie Wiles, and receiving your annual Women of Valor Award. The Woman of Valor, that is Susie, come to think of it. Not only is Susie the first female Chief of Staff in American history, she's also one of the best White House Chiefs of Staff ever in history. I say the best, actually. I'm tremendously grateful for her friendship, loyalty, and support every single day. She's a real professional. It's been especially inspiring to see her courage and toughness in recent weeks as she's been winning a battle with cancer, winning it decisively. It was an early diagnosis, so she's going to be in great shape. Susie played a key role in every one of my campaigns for president, but especially in 2024 when she helped lead us to perhaps the most consequential election victory in modern times. Everything we have done here in the White House has been with her help and her leadership. She's respected by everybody. Every one of these people, they respect Susie. We have a problem, I say, go to Susie. We owe her a tremendous debt, and what she's done is just incredible for our country. Thank you to Susie, and congratulations.
We're so grateful that he did that, and I hope you didn't know about it. We tried really hard to circumvent you.
I walked in when he was filming it, but I didn't know what it was for, and I kind of ducked out the back door. So I didn't know.
We went through hoops. It's very hard to get anything done in the White House without Susie knowing about it. So we here at Independent Women are huge Susie Wiles fans.
Thank you.
And we're so grateful that you've accepted this honor. Part of the reason that we think you're so amazing is that it's never about you.
No.
It's all about getting things done and being impactful and keeping things quiet while layers of smart strategy get a chance to unfold. There's tremendous discipline and focus that's required for that. And it's so rare. I mean, we're in Washington, where the oxygen of the place is self-aggrandizement. Why is it that you don't need the external validation that so many need, that you see in politics? And do you think that perhaps being a woman helps in that regard?
Well, first of all, thanks to all that took the time to be here. I'm very honored. I looked at the list of who'd been honored before me and thought, oh boy, I don't deserve this rarefied air. And then I got here and saw a tactical team with the Secretary of War. So we should all feel very safe.
I have never felt so safe.
It's not about me. I mean, that's why it's easy to have it not about me. I'm not on the ballot. I just have a team, and the team is incredible. Many of them have been with me and with President Trump for years. And so it is easy to not be personal about it because it just doesn't require that. And yeah, it probably is easier because I'm a woman, but honestly, just look at the facts. If you make it about you, you're taking away from what the cause is really about. So I don't find it hard.
Well, we appreciate it, and I believe that is truly the smart strategy. When you look back at your early career, did you ever imagine that you might end up in this kind of a role, shaping the future of our country, or did that path reveal itself over time? Or did you only find out, like yesterday, in 2024?
I didn't. I was going to be an English teacher. And just happenstance led me to an early political job. And then I've been in and out of the field for some years. But this is the path God chose for me, and I'm here, and I'm doing the best I can every day. And that's what my recommendation is to everybody. Show up, do your best, work hard, have a great team around you, and success will follow.
Was there a defining moment that led you to think that this might be where you wanted to be and what you wanted to be doing?
I mean, White House Chief of Staff?
Or that in the whole political space?
No, I worked as an intern on the Hill, a paid intern when I was young, because I could make more money there than waiting tables. I mean, honestly.
And what about for White House Chief of Staff? When did that call to you?
I thought about it sort of the last week of the campaign, whether I would want to stay in Washington, whether I would go back to Florida, and didn't really think deeply about it. And then a couple of days after the campaign was over, the president called me in and said, "I hear you don't want to be my chief of staff." I said, "Well, where'd you hear that?" So here I am.
Was there a risk you took that, in hindsight, really shaped the trajectory of your career?
Early on, I took a number of years off work at all, and certainly this business. And when I went back to work after my children went to school, my first job was working for a good friend of mine, because she was a good friend of mine, but she was also a member of Congress. And I've kind of been in that pathway ever since. And in recent years, the biggest risk I took was, I think in 2016, I had a couple of Floridians in the presidential race who I really adored, one of whom is the Secretary of State now. And yet I wanted a disruptor. And I looked around at the disruptors in the field and said, I think Donald Trump's the one. We were the 17th string. We were the last people chosen, the last people with experience, and yet here we are. So that was a big risk that certainly changed everything for me and made life completely different and better than I ever could have imagined.
What did you see that made you think that a disruptor was what was needed?
I'm a lifelong Republican. I'd always been sort of a traditional Republican, and it just wasn't working in my mind. So I thought we got to do it differently, but it has to be a Republican. There was a huge field, for those of you that remember that race. It was quite contentious, but literally I looked around and said, which one do I think can win and is legitimately a disruptor? And I think we all agree that President Trump was that person.
I think they need you in the Senate.
Yeah.
So you've been in this game a long time, and part of that world is navigating relationships with an often hostile media. The president and his team regularly are attacked by the media, and you came in yourself for a pretty nasty attack last year. So as you've found yourself targeted, has that experience given you a different understanding of how to navigate, and you yourself, but also conservatives generally, should navigate those relationships?
It was really, back in my career, back in the day, I did press work. That was my job. I was a press secretary and a communications director. And at the local and state level, I think you have good relationships most often with the press that cover you. So I was a little bit surprised at the intensity of the vitriol, not only for me, but for many members of the cabinet, even our staff. So I think you have to grow thick skin, which is not easy, and I can't say I've succeeded there. I resist the temptation to correct everything that's wrong, because you'd spend all your day and night doing that. And I stay off Twitter because that makes me crazy when I see all that criticism. But honestly, you just have to get up every day and do your job again and not let the critics get to you. Easier said than done, but that is my way of operating.
So are you still, one assumes, back-channeling with media, or are you now
No.
much more careful about who you talk to? And
Much more careful, and if I do it, I get in trouble at the White House. So because I do it at 1 o'clock in the morning, and so I don't. I have a couple of friends in the reporter ranks, but we keep it to friendship. I don't. I leave it to the others.
okay. So we should assume that if there is a quiet conversation with the media, it's something that the president wants put out there.
Yeah.
Just J.D. Vance told a story about sort of market testing an idea deliberately that way. Have there been many of those?
Not too many. Not for me.
Okay.
I know they go on, though.
So this is a more, I've thought about what it must be like to work in that White House. Maybe you're one of those lucky people who only needs 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night.
No.
But if not, or even if you do, how do you manage working for somebody who never sleeps and in a White House that operates on Trump time? How do all the normal mortals who need to function manage that?
I am not one of those people that doesn't need sleep. I actually do very much. But in the campaign, when I go to sleep early, and Dan Scavino, who I'm sure many of you know, is a night owl, so we divide it. And I get the early calls and Dan gets the late calls. And that's the way we've sort of navigated over a couple of years, making sure we all get enough sleep, even if the president doesn't.
Okay. Is there a misperception you often wish that people understood better about the White House and how it functions and the president?
Oh, yes. Yes. We work hard. Many people make sacrifices. They have young families. They have marriages that they're trying to keep intact. And there's just not the ability to prioritize that. So when people come to work at the White House, they're giving up a lot. So when we hear how what rarefied air we live in, that's true. But it doesn't come without a price. And we're honored to pay it. But I wish people understood more what 7 days and 14 days and 21 days of 18-hour work days do to you. It takes a bit away. And so we're not spoiled. We work in a beautiful, beautiful place for a wonderful person, but we work as hard as anybody I've ever known, and certainly as hard as I've ever worked.
Can you share a moment that didn't go as planned and what leadership looked like in that moment?
That's every day at the White House.
Tell us some stories.
I can't tell you stories.
Well,
but
there's some stories you can
But
tell.
it's the Trump White House is nimble. That's dynamic. Those are the nice ways of saying it changes every day. And so you just really, I had a head start because I went to work almost full time for the president in 2021. So I've been watching this movie a while. And you just have to roll with it. You never know what he comes downstairs with in the morning, but whatever it is, you have to move it forward and deal with it. So life is not, the surprises are not surprised. They are what they are every day.
Okay. The kind of work you do requires intensity, resilience, and long stretches of pressure, just by definition. What helps you stay grounded in the midst of it all?
Well, when you introduced yourself and talked about yourself, you talked about your children, one of whom I understand works with us. Is that right? One of your children works with us?
She may even be here. I don't know if Kevin Hassett let her go. I see you, Delaney. Yeah, so one is a Marine, one is working in the White House. The third one jokes that the first two are on the public dole, so he has to be in the private sector making money, so he's with a startup in Austin. So,
I have 2 daughters, grown daughters, and a grandson. And so I wake up every morning thinking about what I can do, just in my little piece of the world, to make the world and their lives better going into the future. That is enough to motivate me. Others may need more. I don't. That's all I need.
I appreciate you saying that, but I've got to still think there's something that you may do when you need time to reset and recharge. What would that be? What's the Susie Wiles recharge your batteries strategy?
I love to walk wherever I am. I find a good path and walk. I have a very eclectic music playlist that I listen to that has nothing to do with politics or anything. And I think the most recent song on it is probably from 2000. So.
Oh. Having worked so closely with President Trump, what's something he insisted on during a campaign that made you think, that's very on brand, but I did not see that coming?
Well, it's no secret in this room, and I see Todd Blanche here, we had a few trials and a little courtroom time. And in one particular trial, at the end of the day, he walked out to talk to the press and just sort of held court out in this nasty, dirty courthouse in Lower Manhattan, right?
Yes.
And I thought, why are you doing this? And yet, so on brand. Of course he did that at the end of the day for like weeks running. And there are so many examples of that where he doesn't do what you think he's going to do, but it is so him and it works so well.
When he decided to serve McDonald's or drive a garbage truck. Was that his idea?
No. I spoke earlier of a great team, and that was their idea. The McDonald's, I mean, that just sells itself. He eats it every single day. And the garbage truck, I see Brett Powell here. I think she had something to do with the garbage truck.
Okay. When you first started working with President Trump, what was the biggest, this is not what I was briefed for moment? I did not go into the White House in 2016. The 2020 election, I ran Florida. And then when he came back to Florida after leaving the White House, he called me and invited me to dinner, which I was not in the inner circle. I was just overwhelmed. I couldn't imagine why. I drove down to Mar-a-Lago, which I think he thought I live, 10 minutes from there, but it's really 4 hours. And we had a lovely dinner, and at the end of it, he wanted to know why he won Florida, but maybe struggled in some other states that I think we're going to find out he actually did win. But I wrote like an after-action report, gave it to him to read, and as I was going out the door, he said, I have a PAC, and I think it has money in it, but I'm not sure, and I'm not sure who works there. Can you take that over? And I said, well, sir, I have a job. He said, no, you can do it in your free time. You can get it done in a week or so. And I did. So here I am. Very good. He does get value for money, doesn't he?
He does.
So we have only a few seconds. Do you have time for 2 questions?
Of course.
Okay. As you reflect on your career, what is a lesson that you learned that you wished you had known earlier?
I really have always believed in the concept of a team. I was raised in a family of athletes who understood the value of all of that. I raised my own girls that way. But the full extent of what you can do if you have good people around you, you don't want to get any credit, and you just want to put the best product out that you possibly can, is something I wish I'd known in my 20s. I didn't. Not like I do today. So I think that's what I wish I had known earlier.
And finally, when you think about the legacy of your work, what do you hope people will say about your impact?
I've not thought about that. I'm not leaving anytime soon. Thank you. I guess I want to be known as somebody who was predictable, steady, considerate of everybody, the people that work with me and the people that maybe oppose me, or us. And we've moved forward at a pace that's almost inconceivable, and yet we continue to do that. And I'm very proud of our ability to pull everything together to get that done. I hope I remembered for that. I also, and I think I can say this, I got a cancer diagnosis 9 weeks ago, and I come to work every day. I do my job. I don't complain, and I think that sets an example too for the people I work with.
Bravo. We give out awards to honor people, but truly I think it is we who are honored by your accepting this award, and I'd like you all to join me in one more round of applause for Susie Wiles.
Thank you so much.
Our Woman of Valor.
Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy your dinner. The trip auction will close at 7:30. Be sure to visit the table in the reception area. Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the screens. please welcome Independent Women's President, Carrie Lucas.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight. You know, I always love our gala, but tonight is particularly special because we also get to celebrate the 250th anniversary of America's founding. Yeah, of course. USA a hand. Now, I know there's going to be a huge number of events celebrating this special occasion and highlighting the miraculous beginnings of our country. But Independent Women, as a group dedicated to promoting liberty and limited government on behalf of American women, we have a particular role to play in this celebration. Let's face it, most discussions of America's founding and its relationship to women sound like a lot of excuses. After all, no women signed the Declaration of Independence. We had founding fathers, not founding mothers. We hear endlessly about Abigail Adams urging her husband to remember the ladies as he helped reconceive man's relationship to government. Now, I'm sure Abigail was a big influence on her husband, and there were many women who contributed to the founding in meaningful ways. Yet honestly, stories of women during the Revolution mostly remind us that women were limited at the time to being behind the scenes, and that at best, women's rights were an afterthought. Yet that doesn't mean we need to make excuses about America's founding. That misses the entire point of what makes America so unique and what makes this anniversary worth celebrating. America's founding and our Declaration of Independence laid the intellectual groundwork that made women's full equality and flourishing possible. Our founding fathers created a framework that allowed our country to innovate and develop. It unleashed an economic engine that produced unparalleled gains in standards of living and in human longevity. Yet more importantly, it paved the way for an unprecedented explosion in human rights, civil rights, and the cause of equality, including for women. American women are the blessed heiresses of this incredible inheritance. Women used the founders' framework to gain full equality under the law and foster a society where women's dreams can be just as big and audacious as any man's. It's easy to take this for granted because women's rights and full equality are the water in which we all swim here in America. Yet a glance around the globe reminds us that we are not only history's outliers, but that American women remain the most privileged on this earth. Unfortunately, too many Americans, especially young women, are being taught not only to take this great inheritance for granted, but to believe somehow we are victims of this system. Simply put, America is in danger of losing millions of women. And I'm not talking about the gender voting gap that we hear about every election season about whether more women are going to vote R rather than D. Rather, the real danger is that millions of women are giving up on America and her promise. Today, millions of women say that they prefer socialism over capitalism and want to transform our precious republic into something far, far worse. It's a disaster, a true threat to our future, the future of the free world, and it is one that independent women will confront head on. At Independent Women, we resoundingly reject the anti-American and pro-third world narrative that misses the mark on many levels, but most spectacularly on what it means for women. We know that in too many parts of the world, women are still treated as second-class citizens. Women are denied the ability to work and travel on their own. Sexual abuse is expected, tolerated, and swept under the rug. Women are jailed for showing their faces or hair. America cannot solve every problem in the world, to be sure, but we can and should be an unapologetic voice for what's right and what's wrong when it comes to the treatment of women. We should not pretend that countries and cultures that treat women like dogs are somehow equal to our own. We should teach our daughters to appreciate the unbelievable American legacy and encourage them to rigorously defend the principles of equality and freedom that are the foundation of this great country, and we should want everyone worldwide to embrace for their own. Independent women exist to defend America's ideals and to highlight how women uniquely benefit from our constitutional republic in which government is limited and our dreams are not. Independent women exist to make our country and policies better, to give women more options and brighter futures, and that means each and every day we seek to roll back unnecessary regulations, ensuring that the economy offers women a multitude of opportunities. We know that true workplace flexibility doesn't come from a government mandate that a company must provide this number of paid leave time or whatever else. True flexibility is being able to find employment that allows you to customize your work life to meet your specific needs. We believe a part of the American promise is a patient-centered, transparent healthcare system and a student-centered education system that encourages innovation and gives everyone the opportunity to thrive. Independent Women looks at the world today and sees unbelievable opportunities. In fact, earlier this week, we launched a Center for AI and Technology to focus on strategies. Yeah, we're excited about it. This center will focus on strategies to ensure that we maximize the upside of new technologies while mitigating the risks and harms to children and communities. And of course, there are always risks and uncertainties. We know this, and America should be dedicated to finding a sensible path forward. But we can do this with the confidence that if anyone can find a positive path forward, America can. We cannot give up on our sense of optimism, which is as much a part of the American inheritance as anything in our founding documents. Sometimes I think conservatives forget that a bit. Sometimes some conservatives can seem to long for a past that's been selectively edited by time. At Independent Women, we absolutely want to restore the best of civil society and encourage the creation of tight-knit communities. We want to ensure that young people, especially young women, know that ambitious careers and big dreams can bring fulfillment, but that what truly matters in the long run are the relationships in your life. We want to support the development of healthy marriages and encourage people to have children. I'm a mother of 5, so I encourage people to have a lot of them. But we don't limit ourselves to applauding women solely as mothers. We support women, all women, single women, divorced women, widows, working women, as well as those who stay home. We want government policies that do the same and that enable women to make good on that promise and the Declaration of Independence that we all get to pursue happiness on our own terms. Thank you. Now, again, I'm so grateful for you all being here tonight and to help us celebrate our truly amazing honorees who are working hard to keep America's promise alive. I want to thank Independent Women's Board of Directors for helping make tonight such a success. Please stand when I call your name so you can be recognized. I'll start with our fearless chairman, Heather Higgins. Yep. Giovanna Kugnaska. Nan Hayworth. Adele Malpass. Abby Moffett, and Dick Weiss. And just to echo Heather from earlier tonight, we're so grateful to all of our generous supporters in the room that made this evening possible and that make all of our work possible. In fact, we just had a generous couple, Dolores and Tassos Pafidis, give us a check for $20,000 to help us get closer to that goal, so we really appreciate your support and generosity. And now we get to move on to the next honoree. Please direct your attention to the screen for a video to highlight Independent Women's features, storytelling work, and the winners of tonight's Resilience Award. Thank you.
Please welcome IW Features Editor-in-Chief Kaylee McGee-White.
Well, dangerous of them to put the girl who yaps for a living in front of the microphone, but I promise I won't take up too much of your time. We launched our grassroots storytelling arm, Independent Women Features, in 2024 with the goal of elevating everyday Americans whose voices and stories have long been ignored. We believe these stories are essential to drive meaningful change because it is impossible to ignore the consequences of policymaking when one is forced to see and hear from those directly affected. The ladies I'm about to introduce know this very well. They began as independent women storytellers and through our ambassador program have used their experiences and insights to influence lawmakers, drive public opinion, and force the world to reckon with the costs of abandoning common sense. It takes an extraordinary amount of courage to do this. They came forward at a time when no one else was really willing to talk about the harms of gender ideology, let alone go up against it publicly. And they did so knowing they would face attacks as a result. But when those attacks came, these women continue to show the kind of bravery that is only possible when you know that truth is on your side. It's for all of these reasons that these incredible storytellers will be receiving our Resilience Award tonight. Independent Women created this award to recognize individuals who exhibit bravery, courage, and inner strength, and use these gifts to create a better world. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with these women, but for those who are not, I just want to give a brief snapshot of their stories. Amy Ichikawa is an ambassador at Independent Women and one of the founders of Woman to Woman, a nonprofit organization advocating the safety and dignity of incarcerated women. She helped launch this after her own incarceration at the Central California Women's Facility for 5 years. Since her release, Ichikawa has been blowing the whistle on how, behind bars, incarcerated women are sitting ducks, vulnerable to violence at the hands of biological males who enter into prisons identifying as women. Prisha Mosley is a detransitioner and ambassador at Independent Women. As a teen, doctors and counselors set Mosley on a path of medicalized gender transition, telling her that changing her body through large amounts of testosterone and undergoing surgery to remove her breasts would cure her mental health problems. After detransitioning, Mosley shared her story with Independent Women and has since become one of the nation's leading voices against gender-affirming harm. Allie Kogan is an ambassador at Independent Women. While in college at the University of Wyoming, Kogan's sorority, Kappa Kappa Gamma, admitted a biological male and gave him access to the girls' home. Kogan was one of the few girls who decided to speak out, even filing a lawsuit against Kappa's national leadership after the sorority refused to stand up for the very women it was created to represent. Soren Aldacco is a detransitioner and ambassador at Independent Women. After discovering transgenderism online, Aldacco began identifying as a boy at age 11 and then pursued hormonal replacement therapy at age 17. After undergoing a botched double mastectomy at age 19, Soren found herself alone in the emergency room with doctors reopening her wounds, thinking she was going to die. Soren's traumatic medical complications opened her eyes to the ills of so-called affirmative care, which she says enabled her to believe pills, injections, and procedures could provide her the sense of self she craved growing up. Now detransitioned, Soren is a vocal advocate against the enabling medical industry. Her lawsuit against the medical providers who pushed her toward medicalization was taken up by the Texas Supreme Court this year. I think we can all look at the fruit of the past year and confidently say that our country and our culture are in a much better place because of these women. And by joining forces with Independent Women to seek justice, they are helping ensure that what happened to them never happens to another girl again. Please join me in welcoming our Resilience Award recipients, Independent Women Ambassadors Prisha Mosley, Amy Ichikawa, Allie Kogan, and Soren Aldacco. And now I'd like to invite Amy up to say a few words.
Wow. Thank you so much for this honor. It wasn't always easy for me to tell my story, and it wasn't until I started my ambassadorship with independent women that I began to experience the healing and restoration that happens through the act of storytelling. Every opportunity that I've been given to share my experiences in prison have helped liberate me from the shame and the embarrassment associated with my past that kept me locked up despite being free. I've become comfortable and confident in who I am and what I stand for. I recently noticed that I don't excessively apologize anymore. I've been sorry for everything since I was a little girl. Having independent women's team of women believe in me and believe in what I'm capable of doing has helped me reach a point in life where I can exist without being sorry. What I've gained since independent women took me under their wing doesn't just benefit me. It extends to one of the most forgotten sectors of society that we have, incarcerated women. Being seen by them on the news, being able to mail them my op-eds, having them know that we're bringing the heat to the fight for their most basic human rights is a priceless gift. This is giving them the courage to start valuing their own lives. And together, we're learning that we do matter and that we do not have to be subjected to cruel and unusual punishment. On behalf of all of these resilient, beautiful young ladies, thank you so much for your support and for this incredible honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from the Micro Works Foundation, Micro.
Hello. Yeah, somewhere during the main course, I looked at the program and saw that I was giving some remarks this evening, which is super exciting. On the positive side, the timer says I only have 5 minutes, so I'll stay within those parameters. What a pleasure it is to be back here. Mary Sullivan, there you are. Thank you so much for picking up the tables. Mary is my Susie Wiles, essentially. And we were here together 8 years ago when, for some reason, I was selected as a gentleman of distinction, I believe it was called. And thank you. I wasn't sure what it meant then, and I'm still not entirely sure, but I've been spending the last 8 years trying very hard to live up to that title. Part of that means, to Amy's point just now, is making sure some of the stories that come out of this room reach the largest possible audience. I don't have the largest possible podcast, but it's a good size, and Amy Ichikawa came on to tell her story and reached millions of people. So did Peyton McNabb, who's with us tonight. So did Riley Gaines, who I think some of you might know. And sometime soon, I think Patrice, who I just met, will come on and we'll talk about the fight for freelancers and the madness of the PRO Act and the insanity of AB 5 and so forth and so on. It's been so great to get to know you guys over this period. For those of you who weren't here 8 years ago and aren't quite sure what the Dirty Jobs guy is doing here in a suit and tie, all my other suits are rubber, by the way, so this is a very big night for me. I run a foundation called Micro Works with Mary and Jade Estrada, who's over there as well somewhere. Look at Jade getting the applause. Nice. We've been at this for 18 years now. The Micro Works Foundation is a scholarship fund and sort of an ad hoc PR campaign on behalf of the 7.5 million open positions in our country right now, most of which do not require a 4-year degree, but rather training and work ethic. So that was a legacy to Dirty Jobs, and that foundation has chugged along under its own steam for a long time now. And 8 years ago, it was becoming relevant in ways that I hadn't entirely anticipated. The headlines were beginning to catch up with the charter of the foundation and our basic mission to close the skills gap by making a more persuasive case for the aforementioned 7.5 million jobs, and along the way suggesting ever so gently that maybe $1.7 trillion in outstanding student loans isn't the best millstone with which to hobble this generation, or maybe removing shop class from high school 50 years ago had some unintended consequences that inform virtually everything my foundation is involved in. We've been reading a lot about that in the headlines as well. We've also learned, thanks to Nick Eberstadt's incredible work, who you guys would love. Nick wrote a book called Men Without Work, where he really drills down on the uncomfortable reality that nearly 7 million able-bodied men of prime working age today are not only not working, they're not looking for work. And that's never happened before in our country, not in peacetime anyway, and I suppose we could discuss whether we're at peace or not, but it's still a heck of a number, and it's a giant problem. And what it says about our relationship with work and what it says about our country, well, that's an open conversation, and that's the conversation my foundation has been pushing forward. Now, since I stood here, or wherever we were 8 years ago, the headlines have accelerated further and further and faster and faster. 8 years ago, we awarded $1 million that year in work ethic scholarships to the people who applied for assistance from our foundation. We award work ethic scholarships simply because I don't think anybody else is. They're scholarships for academic achievement and athletic achievement and for artistic achievement and pretty much everything else, but we wanted to do something that really hit the nail hard on the head. And I thought Susie spoke really eloquently about not just the dignity of work, but the dignity of work ethic and personal responsibility and delayed gratification and just doing what you say you're going to do. Those are the people we look to assist. And when we hook them up with a skill that's in demand and see them go to work, it's a very gratifying, very powerful thing. And so that's what we've been up to. And now suddenly that $1 million 8 years ago went to $1.5 million the next year, and then it went to $2 million the year after that. Last year I figured we'd award $3 million if we could raise it, and we did. And then suddenly it was $5 million. The applications were coming in faster than ever. This year we've set aside $10 million to help train the next generation of skilled workers. Thank you, but I'm not doing anything different. I've been doing the same thing for 18 years. The rock we're pushing up the hill looks pretty much the way it did when we started pushing it. My team has done incredible work, but I want to just give a quick shout out to Wells Fargo. Allison Hawkins was here earlier. She had to leave, unfortunately, but Wells Fargo and BlackRock. Now, Larry Fink and I don't probably see eye to eye on a fair number of things, but we see eye to eye on this. In the $14 trillion portfolio he's running, he has companies that need 400,000 electricians. Now, they can't find them. These companies are paying attention. Ford is paying attention. Parts of this administration are paying attention, and hopefully sometime soon I'll have something to announce with respect to a national effort to reinvigorate the skilled trades and tell the stories of the people we assist in a regular, compelling, and meaningful way. Because once again, Amy is right. We're as good as our ability to tell our story. And our story today lies with 3,300 people who we've been able to assist. Welders, steam fitters, pipe fitters, electricians in particular, HVAC, CNC operators, shipbuilders. My God, the shipbuilders. Quick sidebar, but the Blue Forge Alliance is an organization some of you may have heard of, most of you probably haven't. They oversee 16,000 individual companies who are collectively charged with building and delivering our submarines, right? It's a big deal. Right now, probably a bigger deal than ever. Our nuclear-powered subs are the tip of our spear. It's a couple Columbia and one Virginia class every year. That's the cadence, or maybe it's the other way around. It's 3 nuclear-powered subs a year, and these guys call my little foundation to say, do you have any idea where the skilled tradespeople are? We're desperate to hire. I said, how many do you need? They said 400,000. That number keeps coming up. If I had an alarm bell, I'd ring it. It's getting critical for our country, and I think this is going to be headline news for the immediate future. So I'll just leave you with this. I am honored to be in your presence. I'm delighted to have become friendly with so many of you. And I'm hopeful that with the help of organizations like yours and great storytelling, we can move the needle and reinvigorate our workforce and reinvigorate our trades and make a more persuasive case for 7.5 million good jobs that are sitting there, folks. They're wide open. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is a modest one. Our scholarship program is going to be open for the better part of the year right now through October. The money's real, it's there. We're going to raise some more of it as well, and we're going to give it away. If you know anybody, friends, family, who want to learn a skill that's truly in demand and go to work, I'll be honest, our application process has been described as a pain in the ass, but it's important. It's important because we're very stingy with our money. We're very picky. We want people to make a persuasive case for themselves. We need references. We get an essay. You have to sign a sweat pledge. You have to do some things that shouldn't be controversial, but weirdly are. The top tenet of our sweat pledge, which by the way stands for skill and work ethic, aren't taboo, because acronyms are terribly clever. The top tenet simply says, I believe I have won the greatest lottery of all time. I'm alive, I walk the earth, I live in America. Above all things, I'm grateful. If you like that one, you'll love the other 11. Check it out at microworks.org. Thank you again for recognizing our efforts 8 years ago, for supporting our efforts today. Mary, thank you for becoming a part of this group and sitting on. You had no idea you were going to do that. You just tagged along with me 8 years ago, and now you're on the advisory board or something. Funny world, how it all works out. But I sure am glad to be a part of it, and glad to be here tonight in your presence.
Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the Diana Davis Spencer Lifetime Achievement Award, please welcome Abby Moffett.
Good evening, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be with all of you tonight. And it is with particular privilege to present the Diana Davis Spencer Lifetime Achievement Award, an award named in honor of my remarkable mother, Diana, who is here with us tonight. And whose enduring belief in freedom, citizenship, personal responsibility, and the promise of the country continues to inspire our family and our work every day. This award recognizes an individual who, through talent, hard work, courage, and conviction, has made a lasting contribution to our country and to the cause of freedom. This year's honoree truly embodies those ideals. In fact, few people reflect the spirit of this award more fully than Victor Davis Hanson. Although Victor is unable to join us in person this evening, I am very pleased he is with us here remotely, which, if nothing else, spares him from an evening of Washington traffic and hotel ballrooms. Victor, it is wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. For decades, Victor has been one of the most important and distinctive voices in the American intellectual life. A classicist, a historian, a best-selling author, a senior fellow at Hoover Institution. His scholarship on ancient warfare, classical civilization, and political history has shaped generations of students and readers. And his commentary on modern America has helped countless Americans better understand the moment we are living through, often by reminding us of, the clearest perspective on today's challenges can sometimes be found by looking back thousands of years. But what has always distinguished Victor is that he's never been simply an academic. He has remained deeply rooted in the things that sustain us. Victor comes from 5 generations of California farmers, a family shaped by the land and by the values forged through working it: discipline, resilience, humility, stewardship, and responsibility. Even after achieving extraordinary success in academia and public life, he remains connected to the world and to the rhythms of family, work, and community that formed him. Thomas Jefferson wrote that cultivators of the earth are the most valuable citizens. He believed that independent attachment to place and personal responsibility form the moral backbone of a free society. Victor's life and work reflect exactly those virtues. Whether writing about ancient Greece, military history, education, citizenship, or the challenges facing modern America, Victor has consistently defended historical truth, common sense, and the values that sustain free societies. And he has done so with remarkable courage and independence. At a time when intellectual conformity is often rewarded, Victor has remained refreshingly willing to speak plainly, think independently, and challenge fashionable assumptions with scholarship, moral clarity, and conviction. Even those who disagree with him recognize the seriousness of his work and the integrity of his convictions. Perhaps equally important, he has done all of this without sacrificing civility, something increasingly rare in American public life. That combination of scholarship, patriotism, humility, and plain-spoken wisdom has made Victor a deeply trusted voice for millions of Americans. And it is very much in the spirit of the organizations like IWF, which understands that freedom depends upon citizens willing to defend enduring truths and trusted institutions, even when doing so is unpopular or rather difficult. Victor's legacy extends well beyond his writing and scholarship. It lives also in the example he has set as a father to William and Pauline, farmer, teacher, and citizen. A life that reflects the same integrity and steadiness that defines his work. Victor, your work has strengthened our national conversation, deepened our understanding of history, and reminded so many Americans why this country and civilization that has shaped it remain worth defending. It is truly an honor to present you with the Independent Woman's 2026 Diana Davis Spencer Lifetime Achievement Award. Please join me in congratulating Victor Davis Hanson.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. I think all of us are big admirers of the Independent Women's Forum because in these contentious times, they stood for tradition and values and ethics in the framework of women. And they never said you have to stay home and have children, although without women doing so, we wouldn't have a nuclear family. We wouldn't have a demography that is still under assault, but still robust compared to most places in the world. They didn't say you had to have a career or a title or an education, but if you did so, you would enrich the United States. I think one reason that we are preeminent in the world today is because we have so many women that have chosen careers. And yet they also said you don't have to choose between one or the other. You can do both. And we're even further enriched by women who can do both. And this is very important at this time because we're facing not just a political opposition, but an ideology that we thought had been somnolent or dead, but it's rebirth. And this idea of that capitalism is bad, that consensual government is passé, that the United States is just one of many nations and not preeminent. And in all of these cases, it's women who I feel as writers, educators, politicians who have led the fight to remind us all that in the great succession, the great chain of generations, that we in this generation have an obligation to honor the people who came before us, the people who died at Gettysburg or Okinawa for what we are now, but more importantly, to pass on something better than what we received. And that's innate to the nation of woman, to the nature of womanhood. And I'd just like to finish very quickly with an anecdote. I'm speaking from my farmhouse as the 5th generation, and I have the same name as Lady Diana Davis Spencer, Victor Davis. And the reason I have it is because my mother, and I was close, I had a wonderful father, but I was very close to my mother. And she taught me things that all through my life have come to great advantage. She was born in this house, and my grandfather had never gone to college. He had no boys. He had 2 daughters and another one who was disabled. And he mortgaged this farm that I'm speaking from and sent them to Stanford University in 1939 and 40. And then when they graduated, he insisted they get a graduate degree. My mother got one of the first law degrees from Stanford. Her sister got a master's in English. And then he insisted they come back to the Central Valley and marry their high school sweethearts, who then he insisted also had to go to college, even though they were farming. And I say that because all through my life, when I had periods of crisis, I turned to her. I said, well, I have a PhD in classics, and there's no jobs. And she said, well, I had a law degree, and I was a woman, and the only job that I was offered was a clerk. So I came home, and I raised you, and I didn't go back to work till I was 40. So you come home, and you farm until things change, and then you go back and use your degree. But it's no disadvantage. It's an advantage to be farming. You'll be well-rounded. It'll save you from being hubristic and arrogant. So I did. And then when I went back and was a professor, and she had gone back and was the second woman in the Central Valley to be a Superior Court judge, and the second woman in the state of California to be a state appellate court judge, I said, it's kind of weird that people are nicer to you when you have a degree. And she said, yeah, isn't that funny? You haven't changed. But did you talk to the secretary today? And did you talk to the janitor? And remember that these people are as important as you are, and you don't ever rely on your titles instead of your abilities. And then I thought of that a lot. And then I had a daughter, a beautiful daughter at 26 who died of leukemia. And I was remembering once when I was young, I said to my mom, before we 3 boys were born, you had a daughter, Georgia Davis, and she died. Yes, she did. I had measles and we didn't. And I said, well, what did you do? She said, I went on, and I wanted more children in her name and her honor, and that's why you're here, so remember that. And so when I lost my daughter, I remembered what she said, and it was a great source of comfort. And then, very oddly, at 64, at the height of her power, she was being considered for the state Supreme Court. She got a benign brain tumor. Of course, it was a misdiagnosis, and it was cancerous. And I asked her what that felt like, because she died shortly after, and she said, Victor, you always play the hand that was dealt, and you do it with dignity, and with dignity you can teach people that may have the same experience. And I remember that when last year I had been diagnosed with a benign tumor, and then it turned out to be cancerous, kind of a difficult one to treat. And people said to me, well, are you upset that it was misdiagnosed? Are you accept that you bled during the operation, you had to have I said, no, you deal with a hand that was dealt. And so I would just like to, in her honor and your honor as well, to thank women, because I think sometimes we underestimate that behind every man, whether he's happy, sad, or a failure or success, but behind every man there's a woman. Thank you very much, and I'm greatly honored for this award. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please turn your attention to the screens.
America has given women opportunities unprecedented in human history. Thanks to our founding and the liberty it protects, women have been able not just to succeed, but to flourish. From the earliest women who fought for independence, to the suffragettes who insisted that the rights proclaimed in the Declaration belonged to them too, to the generations of women who built, defended, and strengthened our nation. For 250 years, American women have been the example for the rest of the world. But we must never lose sight of what an incredible inheritance this is. This freedom cannot be taken for granted. It must be protected. It must be fought for. This is our national inheritance. Preserving it and expanding it is our cause, so that future generations of Americans will not only enjoy the freedoms we have today, but will live flourishing, abundant lives as truly free and independent women. For 250 years, America has led the world, and together, we will fight to ensure the next generation inherits an even stronger, freer, more perfect America.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Carrie Lucas.
Guys, thanks so much for joining us for this great event tonight. I want to give a special thanks to the event team at Independent Women who put this night together. It took a lot of work from everyone, but Amber Schwartz, Jamie Whitfield, Allegra, and the whole Hewlett Events group, you guys made this so special. So thank you so much. It was absolutely beautiful. But now, guys, let's be honest here. It's still really, really early. With Susie Wiles' schedule, we had to cut the pre-reception short a little bit. So I really hope that everyone will stay, join us for a drink, have some candy, and we have a fantastic live band, Alexis Wilkins. So please come and help us celebrate America's 250th. And thanks so much again for being here.